GST Council, sir. You're someone who has consistently said that GST Council needs, it has structural flaws and it needs reform. Considering the fact that, every decision of the GST Council, for example, the recent decision of imposing 5% GST on essential food items, all of these decisions, the union government at the end of the day blames it on the GST Council. And they say, look, the state finance ministers are also a part of it. So it's not like we are deciding, it's a collective decision. What do you have to say about that? Is it unfair to, put that kind of argument forward?
Look, I think there's another aspect of the colonializing power, right? Is to somehow seek legitimacy and seek ways to kind of blame other people for things. So I'm saying, I answer that three ways. I say GST Council, anything good happens, the union takes credit. Anything bad happens, they put it on the GST Council. This is no. More than that, the structural design has got, as I say, a deep flaw. You have to get 75% vote to pass any resolution. The center holds 33%. That means any resolution the center votes against is dead automatically. Now, in theory, you can vote against a central resolution and stop it. But to do that, you have to get 25% vote. But because of this one state, one vote, a state like Arunachal Pradesh, where you get 0.05% of all taxes, or Goa, where you get probably 0.1% or 0.15%, or even like, let's say, pick another small state, Himachal Pradesh, where you get 1.5%, have equal voting rights as a Tamil Nadu, where you get 12% of all the taxes collected. So because of this disparity, you have a natural skew that all those states that are big beneficiaries of union spending automatically are going to vote for higher taxes because they pay in very little and they get out a lot. So higher taxes benefit them. You would expect that large states where we end up paying a lot more than we get, that is mainly Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and also Kerala, Andhra, and some place. You would expect us to naturally want to pay lower taxes because how much ever we pay, we get back a small fraction of what we pay. The problem is that the BJP states don't vote as if they're states. They vote as if they're getting diktat from the BJP command. So they sacrifice their people's interest for their party's interest. And therefore, the odds that you can get 12 or 13 states who are net contributors, net donors, especially these large states, to vote against the union is close to zero. So the union effectively runs it as a, what can I say, rubber stamp technical body, so that any hard decision they can put into the council and put it that way. And any easy decision, they'll say, oh, any good news, they'll say it's us, it's our magnanimity, it's the great leaders, vision, etc. I'll go one step further though. In this case, I just want to make a distinction that this 5% is not 5% for the first time. There was already prior to this a GST system where any of these commodities sold in loose in villages and stuff from a bucket or from a big pot to it was exempt and it continues to be exempt. Anything sold and packaged and sold by big brands and all was already taxed and continues to be taxed. This change only affected this subset of the product that was packaged but sold without an enforceable brand. Just be careful to what I'm saying. First there was a distinction of three types. They said loose, branded, and packaged without any brand, meaning it's in a plastic bag or a cloth bag, but it has no label on it. And loose was exempt, branded was taxed, and this, unmarked bags was also exempt because it was intended to keep fresh and to reduce, damage and all that. Then a lot of small traders went and complained and requested in Mr. Jaitley's time that those bags basically should also be tax-free if the brand was a local brand, because they felt that they wanted to show their village, their town, their grocery, kirana shops, customers that they had a different quality. So they would have a brand, but it would not be a national brand, and therefore it should be treated as if it was unbranded. And this had led to a lot of issues. If you want to get technical, there's a lot of other problems. And so it was the process of this, though the Tamil Nadu government objected both in writing at the Fitment Committee and at the GM, which we are not a part of. At the end of the day, this distinction was about that stuff. It was about that middle product. It was about that packed and locally branded or packed, but not brands that would be not enforced. It's a bit complicated, but there's only a small slice. That's all I want to make the point. And
So
the bulk of the stuff had no change. That's what I want.
okay. And coming to Tamil Nadu, the one main criticism that the government today is facing from the opposition parties, especially, is that the DMK has failed to deliver on its election promises, mainly the fuel cut, the tax cuts on fuel, and the 1,000 rupees allowance that was supposed to be given to women heads of the family. How do you respond to this? Because this is something that time and again, both the BJP and the ADMK, all of them are repeatedly, accusing the government of.
Look, I don't want to make this an exercise in whataboutery. I just want to point out that in the history of Tamil Nadu, in fact, in the history of India, no other government has fulfilled more poll promises in as little time as the DMK. Now, I'm the first guy to say whether we really needed to give 500 poll promises and all, and which of them are meaningful, which of them are not. I personally, technically, I've made the point many times that I'm not sure that this is the right way to do poll promises. Right? If you give 502 or 510 or something, is it really meaningful or not is a different question. That's a question that I've asked my leader, and that's something we'll have as a debate internally. But statistically speaking, I think you'll find it impossible to find another example of a government that has fulfilled more poll promises as a percentage of all poll promises in as little time as this DMK government. So what's like fascinating to me is that the press, more than anybody else, the press, of course, the opposition is looking, the opposition, when they can't find anything real to criticize, they talk about some nonsense. What amazes me is the press, people like you seem to have lost your brains altogether. People who have done 0 poll promises or 10% poll promises in 5 years or 10 years, you don't ask them the question. Then those people who have finished 40% or 50% of the poll promises within like 1 year or 15 months, you say, why haven't you done the rest? It's like two different standards altogether. It's as if the rest of the parties are given a free pass. We know you're just talking bullshit. We know you mean nothing. We know you're fit for nothing. So we don't ask you these questions. But the DMK is always good to its word. Therefore, we ask the DMK, why have you not done more than 40% in 15 months? I say that we have a 5-year term. Wait till 5 years and ask us how many have we done. As of today, we have beaten any government in the history of Tamil Nadu in terms of percentage of poll promises delivered. We will get even higher than here by the time our term is over.
Okay. And I'll just end with this question. There are a lot of issues in the Indian economy. Several economists have spoken about the high rate of inflation, joblessness and all of that. Considering, or hypothetically, if you were the finance minister of India, what would be your priority and what would you do differently? Or what would be your focus area at this point in time?
Not my job. I'm worried about my state. We are doing a good job. We have a huge increase in our revenues. We have a huge cut down in our deficit. We have streamlined and strengthened a lot of processes. We have brilliant advisors from all over the world. We have specialists in every field helping us improve and refine our policy. And we are at a place where basically what I thought would take 5 years, I think we can do in 2 to 3 years in terms of completely eliminating the revenue deficit. Therefore, more than doubling, maybe even quadrupling the capex spending, and bringing in new PPP models and new balancing models for social justice, and bringing in brand new schemes like the free breakfast program, which was not even announced in the manifesto, incidentally, and bringing in major changes to old schemes like the Thaliki Tangam, which was already left effectively abandoned for 4 years, converting that into a scholarship scheme effective immediately. I think in a few days, the CM is going to send out the first checks. So in that sense, I would say that we will show a new model of how to run a government. That's the kind of summary of that. We will show how you can run a comprehensive, thoughtful, compassionate, inclusive government that yet produces really good fiscal outcomes and balances as you started. Let's end with as you started. How you trade off the social spending and revenue spending on the one hand with the capital investment and the long-term growth on the other hand and job creation on the other hand. I think we are going to show a model that has not been seen before. I'm very comfortable that we are on the right path from a fiscal perspective because the Chief Minister gives us both the direction and the support to get it done. And, our results will speak for themselves.
I know I said it was my last question, but since you brought this up, the Economic Advisory Council, you have these top experts from across the world advising the government of Tamil Nadu. What are those conversations like? Whenever you post pictures of your meetings with all these experts, all of us are like, okay, we want to be a fly in the wall just to like understand what's happening and what is the conversation all about. So what are some of the ideas that they have or advices that they have put forward, and what are these meetings and conversations essentially like?
I think they cover the whole range, right? That's why we got 5 different people, because we have 5 different perspectives, right? I mean, we purposely chose people who came from completely different kind of schools of thought. And so, it ranges from macro things like how you do the revenue management, what should be the ratio. For example, we are the first state in the country, to my knowledge, that has gone to inflation indexing for property taxes and in the proposed electricity tariffs, right? And that's how most advanced countries are, right? Because we index other things to inflation, we should also index this. So in that sense, from such macro innovations all the way down to granularity, like in the Illam Thedi Kalvi, there was a lot of input from them. In property tax collections, how should we make it more just and fair and effective? In the EB reforms, in so many aspects, right? And we purposely kept it at the request specifically of Professor Duflo. We kept it more ad hoc, so there was no fat report, because you see, for example, the C. Rangarajan committee gave a report this big, and neither did the old government do a lot with it, nor have we been able to make substantive progress on many of the recommendations. So rather than have this one big report that is going to end up being maybe relegated to bookshelves, we wanted to have more dynamic interactions. I must say, probably, if I had to say one thing, I thought that I would get inputs from them and the government would get inputs from them. I thought that we would be connected to people and all that. But I would say both in the total volume and the range of people that they have brought to work with us from Yale, from other universities, from the UK, from France, and in the actual frequency of their visits, right? I think like Professor Raghuram Rajan has been to India maybe 6 times or 7 times at least. I've been to Chennai. I don't know how many times he's come to India, but he's come to Chennai, and I've met with him in person maybe 6 or 7 times. Professor Subramanian, not Professor, Dr. Arvind Subramanian has been here many times for personal reasons, a couple of times for our work. Professor Duflo has been here physically. Of course, Dr. S. Narayan lives here. So the level of personal engagement, I think, is a bit startling to me in a positive way, because we're seeing them a lot more, and they're not working just with me or with the Chief Minister, but also with a lot of IAS officers and a lot of EB and other people. So listen, at some level, we are the political executive. So the buck stops with us. If things go badly, we answer. If things go well, the leader is the one who gives us the path. At some other level, the more learned you are, the more inputs you seek, because you realize that there's still even more that you can know. So in that sense, we're very grateful because we get advice from them on many different fronts, and it helps us a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking the time out. And that was, of course, Dr. Palanivel Thiaga Rajan speaking to South First and being his candid self. Thank you.
Thank you.